Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lesson 12 of Positive Use. Thank you so much for joining us today, March 29th. Today is Sunday. So I want to share one of the very good questions that some of the students raised last session. What if I was curious at first and lost interest, as it requires more and more effort along the way? Very good question. Last week we talked about curiosity, and I hope that when you review what we learned and doing the homework, and you all find something that you're interested in, it is pretty easy to find something interesting. But it is harder and takes a lot more time to develop our interest and develop into a true passion for our life. So finding true interest is the first step to our sense of accomplishment, because that's our natural and strongest motivator. But to develop it, to really reach that goal of true accomplishment, we need some other skills. So that's the theme that we're going to talk about today. Today is our last session for sense of accomplishment, and the topic is grit. So what is grit? First of all, if you remember the 2013 national bestseller, How Children Succeed, there are 7 character strengths that leads to children's future success and sense of happiness. And grit is actually one of them, if not the most important. So to understand what is grit, I would highly recommend a TED Talk by Dr. Duckworth, Dr. Angela Duckworth from University of Pennsylvania. She was a psychologist who made this term well known in the field of education in America. Back in 2005, when she first started studying for her PhD in University of 2005, she did a study with Dr. Seligman. Together, they two did a study on self-control, and they compared the self-control's prediction to ultimate grade or intelligence, the IQ. So they found out back in 2005 that for 8th graders, for the subject of algebra, self-control, the ability to self-control, which we discussed the first section of sense of accomplishment, self-control, the correlation between that character versus the algebra grade at the end of the school year is twice as strong as the prediction of or twice as strong as a correlation of IQ. So in another word, even if naturally, intellectually, math may be difficult for you, but if you have stronger self-control skills and you spend more time on it, and actually they can lead a very strong grade. So that's what triggered her interest in what predict children's success. Later on, with more studies, and she found out that self-control itself is not enough. And that's when she found out that it's the combination between passion and perseverance. So you have to be passionate about something, which is the motivator, and then you have to have the self-control, the perseverance. You keep on working at it for long-term goals. And that's the definition she gave. The 7-minute TED Talk is a very good one. They'll help you to understand more about why and how she came to that conclusion after years of studies in schools. You can easily measure how great you are on the free grit scale. So if you just Google grit scale, and there's a free version, very simple question. You just rate yourself from 5, very much like me, to 1, very much or very much not like me, or very much like me. So on the scale, you can rate yourself. At the end, the website will give you a number, and then also tell you which range is the normal or preferred range of grit. So we'll help you to understand your own greatness. So, and this is her book, and it's a very good book. Probably you can recommend it to your parents. With our limited time, I'm going to summarize what Dr. Duckworth mentioned as the 4 resources for grit. One is what we talk about last session, interest. The interest, not only to discover it, but also to develop it. And we're going to talk more. So how to develop it? You have to go through practice, purpose for deliberate practice and continued practice. And then what can help you to have stronger perseverance in your practice? Just like our student mentioned, I'm interested in it, but it takes so much effort, I can't persist. So when you have a purpose, when you have a goal, and this goal, you can divide that into, Dr. Duckworth recommends to divide it into 3 levels. One is your ultimate goal. So for example, ultimately you want to become a doctor. And then you have the middle range goal. The middle range goal would be getting into a medical school. So, and below that, you have to have the smaller goals. Just like we talk about the winner's effect, you have to have achievable goals that's measurable and specific enough for you to measure each day. So you can get that into, maybe each day I'm going to watch a TED Talk or TED Ed video on something related to biology or medicine, or explore different things. Or each day I'm going to spending just half an hour on some kind of biology or science, medical science related subjects. So that's your small goal, and then towards the mid-range goal, and then you have your ultimate goal. So make sure that you have that long-term goal, because the ultimate goal give you the sense of purpose. Why I want to study to be a doctor? Because it's a profession where I can save people's lives and or reduce the pain or cure diseases. And so those are very meaningful job. With that kind of goal, that will give you more motivation when you face challenges. Like, for example, you had a poor grade this semester, but I still have 7 more years before I graduate from high school, and I still have my goal. This one thing is not going to defeat me because I have that ultimate goal. And let me take a look at what I can do to improve. Also, the last resources for grade is hope. So where does the hope come from? That we'll talk more about it. But first of all, I wanted to share with you about the practice. I want to mention one rule. We call that 10,000 hour rule. So this was actually discovered by a psychologist, but it was made known to the public through this book, Outliers. I really love this book. You're going to love it too. Very easy to read, much easier to read than the other book, Great. So Outlier, this book, made this rule very well known because it's a national bestseller. So what does that mean? That if you want to master a scale, you need 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. What does that mean? That means if you practice 3 hours a day, I calculated, if you practice 3 hours a day, it takes you about 10 years to be a master. So this rule, later on, the research found out that only works for traditional skills such as piano or chess or athlete skills. But if you're studying things like business, you may not need that many hours. But for traditional professions, like, for example, math, if you spend 3 hours of time on math every day and then continue for 10 years, for example, by the time that you're 10th grade, or a senior in high school, you're going to be really good at it. So 10,000 hours of deliberate practice with a purpose, with a goal, and that's how much effort it takes to master some kind of skill, to be really great at some field. That just for you, for your reference, so that you know. What most important for today's session, I would like you to know and practice this growth mindset. That's what Dr. Duckworth found out to be the most effective way that leads to great. So fixed mindset versus growth mindset. If you have a growth mindset, you have the last resources, hope. You always say hope, no matter what you're facing. So they have different ways, the two different mindset. They have two different ways to look at basically challenges and failures. Because trust me, there are always new things we have to do, or more difficult tasks we have to take on, or failures or disappointment we need to face, and how to persevere or persist in difficult situations when we face disappointments or frustrations. That's when the growth mindset comes in. So, for example, looking at the scales, the fixed mindset would think that you were born with it. I worked with a 9-year-old years ago for IQ test. You know, the way the IQ test is structured, there are 10 different subtests, and each subtest I have to wait until you show 4 or sometimes even 5 failures in a row. And then I stop, move on to the next one. Because this IQ test is a particular IQ test is for children from 6 all the way to 17-year-old. So, and he's 9. Of course, he's gonna, in each subtest, will have to fail some subject, some questions. He won't be able to give me the correct answers, no matter how smart he is. And whenever he gave me a correct answer, he'll ask me, am I smart? And then whenever he has a question that he doesn't have the answer, he'll just collapse in his chair and so defeated. You know, I'm really worried about him because he clearly has the fixed mindset. If I know the answer, I'm smart, I'm valuable. But if I don't know the answer, I'm down. I'm not smart. That's the end of my future. The problem is that that's not how learning is structured. When, for example, I don't have perfect English, even though I came here when I was 23 years old. I spent my last 23 years in this country. When I give lectures, I know what I'm talking about, but my English pronunciation is not perfect. With a fixed mindset, they would say, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed. You know, I can't do this because I cannot present verbally perfectly with the perfect pronunciation." But for people like me who have a growth mindset, I'll just tell myself, you know what, the content is excellent. I may never have the perfect pronunciation to present it verbally, but that doesn't make my desire to help other people less valuable. So I look at it as I can always improve on my pronunciations. I may not get the perfect state ever, but I always have the desire or intention to help others, and that's what counts. So, yes, I look at the problem and challenges, but I feel like it's an opportunity to grow. I still have room to grow in my pronunciation. It helped motivate me to spend more time to practice. Also, I don't look at people's achievement as, they come naturally. No, I know that every single mastery of any skills or any kind of accomplishment, you have to work hard to get to it. I feel that's a must. So the effort is essential, instead of saying effort as, you're either smart enough to have it or you're not smart enough and you don't have it. I don't look at efforts in that way. Plus feedback. I love people's criticism. Whenever they tell me what I need to improve. For example, years ago, a parent told me, Miss Julie, it's better not to mix Chinese and English in one presentation on one PPT. I love it. I love that kind of feedback. It helped me to make my presentation more consistent and more user-friendly. So instead of, but a fixed mindset person will take that criticism as a attack on their personal value, and then they will never improve on others' constructive criticism. The next one is when you face new things. The fixed mindset will be fearful because they don't want to face the possible failure, versus people with growth mindset, they will look at new challenges with excitement. I want to take it on. This is something new I can learn. So that's the biggest difference. Once you master the growth mindset, you can truly give yourself a permanent path to develop your interest, to get good at something, to persist. And 10,000 hours of deliberate practice will not be a problem. You will not give up that easily. Of course, we want to be rational. If something that really has no hope to be accomplished, we can recognize that and give up and save our time. But for most of the things, if you know you have a purpose, this goal is high, but you know the meaning behind it, and you know that you are motivated to achieve it, and then the growth mindset will help you to get there, because that's the only way that you can help you overcome setbacks. Before we go to the assignment, I want to share with you, do not be afraid of stress. Stress is a good thing in a way that when you're under healthy amount of stress, that actually will help you to reach your optimal performance. I'll give you an example. When I was studying for my first master's in China, I was taking GRE tests trying to get a PhD program in America. My real test for TOEFL and GRE, they're both significantly higher than the practice test, because on the real test, I can feel that I'm extremely focused because I'm under stress. I enter this test. I know this test will determine whether I get a scholarship or not. So that healthy amount of stress will help me to focus extremely well. I can remember things that normally under no stress or less stress, I cannot remember. So I actually did so much better on the real test. So that's what stress can help you. Too little stress will make you bored, but too much stress will make you have breakdown or burnouts. But the optimal, the healthy amount of stress will help you to perform your best. So that's another thing to share with yourself when you keep on working at something, but you couldn't get it within a short period of time, and let yourself know that I'll take a walk, or I'll help myself to get into the best physical condition, and then I'll come back, and I know that the healthy amount of stress is good for my performance. So I want you to know that that's a well-known theory of psychological finding that we already know for many years. So for this session's homework, I would like you to take the grayscale that takes only a few minutes, and then watch the 7-minute TED Talk on grade. And the most important thing, I want you to use the ABCD model, the model that we learned in the third class, to strengthen your growth mindset. Because the criteria to check how strong your growth mindset is are when facing failure or criticism. Do you feel ashamed, or are you eager to find out the reason and make improvement? When seeing others' accomplishments, do you feel jealous or more motivated to do better? When facing new challenges, do you feel fearful? Do you feel fearful or excited? So how to change the same thing, for example, new challenges, how to look at it and then take the growth mindset. You can use the D, disputation. Maybe right now facing a new challenge and you immediately said, okay, I can do it. I can do it. For sure, I can do it. So at first, you think it's the new challenge that leads to the reaction, the C, consequence. I can't do it. Thus, I gave up. I quit. But what you don't say is the B, belief. The belief is that the new those are the irrational, automatic negative thoughts. Things like girls are bad at math, or I have a bad memory, or I'm never good at math. So things like that. And then you need to use D, to use true evidence, to talk to yourself and then help yourself to see the real picture. Wait a minute. Yes, I didn't do well on my last math test, but that's only for that chapter. Somehow I have trouble with geometry. But I was very good at algebra. So debate with yourself with past experience. I had trouble memorizing that particular poem, but I was pretty good at memorizing some other things. So defeat those belief that lead yourself to conclusions that's permanent, pervasive, or personal. So make sure you see when you were able to see the challenges or setbacks as specific, external, and also it's just limited, temporary, temporary to that certain topic or certain time. So if you see the setbacks, failures, or frustrations as external, temporary, specific, do not exaggerate it to permanent, pervasive, and personal factors. You will have a growth mindset. I want you to, whenever looking at a new challenge or a failure, to actually feel motivated, excited, so that you can try other things and try different ways, put in more effort, and always have the hope to overcome it. That's the theme for this session. And I hope some of the content that we discussed is helpful to your growth, because to achieve that sense of accomplishment, deliberate practice, consistent deliberate practice, day after day, sometimes years, is necessary. And I hope that with the curiosity, with the self-control, with the growth mindset, you will accomplish your goal. Thank you again for following up with this course. I'll see you next session when we start the new unit of Positive Self.